Sam, you want to record?
Yep, going.
Cool. Hi, everybody. It is Monday, July 8th, and I would like to move to call this meeting to order.
I second.
All right, awesome. Hello and welcome. This is my cousin Laura.
Hi.
She's a second-year DO student at ARCOM, Arkansas College of Osteopathic Medicine.
Yes.
And she's here today to talk to us about her experience in her undergrad and in applying to med schools and master's programs, her clinical experience, research experience. Basically, any questions you have in general, I will pass over to her for her bio, which I posted on the Facebook group, and also for some more details on that. We've had some people post questions already on the group, and we will cover those at the end, as well as if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Sam and Nikki, if you guys could watch that for me so I don't miss anything. And otherwise, while Laura's going through her bio, if you could just put things into the chat, and then we'll open up the mics afterwards. Generally, if you could stay muted when you're not talking, that'd be good. Yeah, welcome, Laura. Thank you.
You're welcome. Hi, guys. Like she said, I'm a second-year medical student, well, about to be a second-year medical student at Arkansas College of Osteopathic Medicine. It's in Fort Smith, Arkansas, which is right on the border of Oklahoma and Arkansas. It's the second biggest city in Arkansas, so that's fun. I did my undergraduate in Southern California. I'm originally born and raised in Southern California. I went to Cal State Fullerton for my undergraduate. And I got my degree in health science, which is a little bit different than most pre-meds. Most pre-meds do like biochem or just general biology. But I kind of wanted that more well-rounded experience and understand more on how you can change people's health behavior rather than just learning the biochem of it all. Did take biochem though too, obviously, to get into med school. So I did my undergraduate there, and then I was a medical scribe throughout my entire college career, and that took over. I had basically a gap year before my master's degree, and it allowed me then to become a national scribe trainer, which meant that I got to move to different hospitals in California and Colorado and work there to start scribe programs, which was really a good experience. Gave me a lot of insight on how different hospitals work, how different doctors work, patient populations, how those are different, and some of the business aspects of medicine and science and research in general. And then I did my master's degree in biomedical science at Kansas City University. That's in Kansas City, Missouri. And that's a one-year program, which are very popular right now. A lot of people are doing those now before they go to med school. That was a really good experience. I did a thesis with that as well. So I got to work on that throughout the year and then present it in front of a lot of people at the end of that degree. And then I decided to continue before med school and get a master's in business administration, specifically in healthcare management, which was most of the business degrees are at night, so you can work full time. So I did that in a year. I kind of rushed it because I was crazy. And then I worked as a research assistant at a children's hospital with the liver transplant team for that whole year during the day, and then I'd go to school at night. And then just throughout the process, I applied to a lot of schools, interviewed at a lot of schools, and I found ARCOM to be like my favorite school. I felt at home there, so decided that was where I was gonna go. So moved my stuff to Arkansas, which for reference, I was in Kansas City doing my graduate degrees, and so my school, ARCOM, is only 4 hours south of that, so it was a pretty easy transition for me just to kind of move down south. So yeah, and then, I don't know, working on some publications right now for the research that I had done, trying to get those manuscripts approved, and that's kind of where I'm at now on summer break for another like few weeks, and then start back up for second year of hell, basically. And that's it.
Our family does week vacation together over the summer, so I cornered Laura and said, come talk to our club.
I'm here.
So thank you.
You're welcome
for that.
It's I'm a very non-traditional student. So my journey is definitely very interesting, but it feels good to me. It feels right. So here I am.
One of the first questions we got was, how did you decide between DO and MD?
Yeah, that's a big one right now because clearly there's more more MD schools and more MDs in general. But for me, I had worked with both MDs and DOs, and I really liked the aspect of the whole patient with DO. And that kind of sounds cliche because everyone says that about DOs. You kind of look at the whole patient, but you really do see a difference when you are actually with both types of providers. And now that I'm in my second year of med school, I see the difference. You spend 200 more hours training on essentially learning how the body is interrelated with each other, and how something as simple as, well, you guys know this, I'm sure, because biochem, like structure equals function, right? So that's a huge thing as a DO. If the structure is not the way it should be, the function of the body is not going to be the way it should be. So as DOs, we use our hands to manipulate the body back into the correct structure. So whether that's moving one of your vertebrae back into place, or a rib, or there's a lot of other things we can do too, but things that are simple as that we can do with our hands to help make the body work the way it should. That was a big draw to me when I was looking for med schools. So I don't know, I just felt at home with every DO that I shadowed. So I kind of decided to go DO.
Was your first exposure to DO when you were working in the ER as a scribe?
Yeah, I worked with a family medicine doctor, actually. She was a family medicine DO, and she was working in the ER, which I thought was really interesting. So that kind of opened my eyes to what you can do as a DO. You have so much, you have a lot of background as far as, I guess, like more primary care. But right now in ERs, that is kind of people's primary care now. Is they don't have primary doctors. They're going to ERs a lot. So it was really interesting to see her be able to use those skills in an ER setting. So yeah, was that your, I don't know.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, I mean, because from what I've heard from people, and I'm not pre-med, so I don't have the same experience, but people say, well, okay, but what is DO and why DO? And especially because you can apply to both MD or DO.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, I also, like my undergraduate degree was in health science. So I think I automatically saw a lot of different aspects of medicine because it wasn't just like biology. And that's kind of how DOs are too. So maybe I was already leaning DO when I started my degree. I don't know. But I don't know. I just got a lot of experience shadowing DOs, and I just kind of felt like that was more me than MD. MDs are very, very, very heavily research-based, which is good. Like DOs are now getting more and more research-based as well, but I think we're more focused on primary care medicine. So we spend less time doing like bench work research and more time doing osteopathic manipulations on people and using that kind of as our research, if that makes sense. It's kind of hard to describe, but
one of the biggest issues that we face in our program, being online and non-traditional, is experience, both clinical and research. My understanding, y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, but that clinical is the most important for this type of thing. And you got clinical research how? How did you first get into that scribe program? How did you hear about it? How did you apply for it?
Well, two things. So I did scribing, which isn't really research. That's more just like clinical experience, which if any of you are going, or if you're pre-med, that is huge. You have to have tons of clinical experience. And if you have the ability to be a medical scribe, that is the best clinical research you can get, clinical experience you can get, mainly because also you get paid, which is really nice, instead of just volunteering, which is also really good. But, you're all in school, and it's nice to also get some money too while you're spending hours in the hospitals. And I think you have a little bit more of a relationship with the physicians because it's your job. You're continuously there. They can rely on you to always be there, and you kind of get to know their style, which is huge. Learning how different people ask different questions, how they deal with hard patients, how they even got into their job. That was really informative for me. I got into scribing. I actually kind of started like in an ER when like all the laws started changing and hospitals started to move to electronic medical records. So this was back in 2009, I think. And I had worked with the local hospital. They were looking for young college students who would work part-time and give a few hours here and there to kind of help them in that transition going from paper charts to electronic charts. So I kind of helped start that program in 2009, and I stuck with it during my undergraduate career. And then I moved up with the company and helped them kind of transition onto electronic records too in other hospitals. So that's kind of how I became a national trainer with that company. Is there a question?
Yeah. Did you have to take any classes or schooling for medical scribing?
So I was in like the very beginning of medical scribing, and at least so there's medical like transcriptionists, and those are the ones that do more of, they transcribe what the doctors dictate. And that's usually like a third-party company, and that I know takes more training. You have to do classes. I think they have a lot of those classes at community hospitals and vocational schools. I was more of a medical scribe in the ER, so everywhere the doctor went, I would go with them. And as they're seeing the patient, I would chart everything they're doing. So you really learn a full physical exam, what they have to write in order to bill certain things. You learn just a lot of the aspects that you don't see as a patient or a volunteer. So that was really interesting. But for that, I didn't have to take any specific classes, and I don't know what it's like now because I was on the very beginning of medical scribing at all. Like that's now a thing that almost every pre-med does. It's like kind of like you need to always do it. Like everyone's doing it. When I started, no one was doing it. All hospitals were kind of learning what this was. So it mainly is you learn medical terminology and learn what a basic chart looks like. And I think that's why they're pretty common in an ER setting, because I mean, the exam's usually the same. Patients don't have usually a very extensive history. You're kind of seeing quick things, coughs and colds. So it's a really good way to learn, I guess, like on the job. A lot of it is on the job training.
What do you think you learned, or that's kind of a broad question, let me rephrase. What would be something that you think you gained from that experience that showed you a side of medicine that you didn't know? Because I mean, we get exposed to the school side of what medical school is.
Yeah.
But it's different than being in it.
I think the biggest thing is that you really learn how, well, ERs are very different, right? I mean, I was working in a Southern California ER, which is very, very busy. And I worked in a pretty underserved area, which if you get the chance, I suggest doing that because it gives you a lot of experience of a lot of different patient populations. So that was really beneficial just to see how other people take care of themselves, and if a lot of them don't have doctors. So that was really interesting. You get a lot of medical issues that they didn't even know they had. But I think the biggest thing was to watch how each doctor worked. I think that was really informative. You can't learn that kind of thing in medical school, except for like when you go on rotations. But if you can kind of get a head start and know how if you see a doctor that you like how they treat a patient or ask a question, that's really helpful, because I can tell you as a first-year med student last year, my school is very big on very early clinical experience. So they throw you in with a patient actor, and you have to do a full exam like your third week of school. And you don't even know how to like introduce yourself, basically. You're like, it's so weird. Like you don't know what you're doing. But if you have experience of watching that many doctors over and over every day for, I did it for a few years, I don't know, it makes it really easy to know exactly what kind of doctor you're going to be. So, yeah.
When you and I were talking in preparation for this, you were talking about the growing importance of a master's before applying to med schools.
Yeah, it's becoming really common now. If any of you, I don't know if you guys are going to be applying to a master's, a lot of them are a master's of biomedical science, because it usually gives you a research component with that degree. Whether that's just taking classes on how to do research, how to understand articles, how to write articles, present them. and do like poster presentations and that kind of thing. That's very helpful, especially now that I'm in med school. I can tell you, like, learn how to do a poster presentation because you will need to do one, and they are very time consuming, and you're going to want to present your research eventually. But I lost all my train of thought.
That's all right. We're talking about master's before going to med school.
I feel like my master's was really helpful because I studied very different during my undergraduate degree. And my master's, I would say, like, ultimately taught me how I need to study for med school. The classes are very high level. And you're taking a lot of classes at the same time. You're doing like anatomy, intense biochem, no OChem, thank goodness. But you're taking all these classes at very graduate level. They're hard, and the professors don't give you any break because you're a graduate student, and that's how they treat you in med school as well, or any PhD program. So it kind of forces you to learn how you study in that environment. I would say that's the biggest thing, and how to time manage too, because there's just a lot you have to study and projects and things like that, depending on which school you go to.
So you had your undergrad.
Yes.
You had your clinical.
Yes.
You figured you wanted the master's. You're doing the master's, and now you have to pick a med school.
Yes.
How do you pick a med school? David asked, your school seems newer. How do you feel about going to a newer college? One of my top choice schools is about 3 years old, and I'm curious if there are any issues with the classes seem disorganized or issues with faculty. Yeah,
that's a really good question. I was completely worried about the same thing. But I can tell you, after interviewing at really, really old, well-established schools and interviewing at a new school, the biggest thing for me and the reason I chose my school is because the newer schools, they have to maintain their accreditation. They're preliminarily, is that the right way?
Yeah.
Preliminarily accredited. So they basically have to cater to you in a way to make sure that you are happy with the school, you're getting the education you think you deserve, because they need you to stay there. They need you to graduate. They have to have a certain number of graduates based on every class for their first 4 or 5 years, I think, in order to keep their doors open, basically. So if you kind of have a little more leverage, and I'm seeing that now. When I interviewed at my school, I noticed from the moment I walked in that every person that worked there wanted me to succeed. And that is the biggest thing you can ask for in a med school, because where I went to grad school, I had a really good experience and I really liked the school, but I noticed that I was a number, and they had so many students, and if I was struggling on a test or just a concept, it was a lot harder for me to get attention from my professors. And I can tell you right now that a newer school is going to do everything they can to make sure that you succeed. For instance, my school, someone was like, oh, I'm having trouble with this one concept, and they decided they had 50 tutors come in from the other class above us. They paid them, and we didn't have to pay anything. They just basically handing us all these helpful people. I don't know how to describe it, but it was something that I had never seen at any other school I had been at. So that was something I really liked. Also, this might sound really tiny, but if any of you are going to go to med school, something like this will really tell you what a school is like. And what I mean is, I walked out of my car at my interview and walked up to the steps of the school, and the dean was standing there ready to shake my hand before I even walked in the school. And that is something really unique, because most of the deans at most med schools are so busy and they have so many other things going on, and you're just another number to them. But at this school, I don't know, it just felt like home to me, and they were really there for me. So
they're invested.
They were very invested, and they still are to this day. I can tell you, every single school, grad school, med school, you're going to have professors that are going to decide they want to go teach at a different school, or go maybe not teach anymore and just practice or do research. And so we did have 1 or 2 professors move on, and that's something that I experienced in grad school too. So that can kind of be a little bit wait, what? Because I don't think you have that in undergrad, because you usually just take a semester course. Mm. But these professors are with you every single day throughout your whole med school journey. So sometimes that's people are oh my gosh, what's happening? I'm no, this happens at every school. You're good.
Do you think Do you think you felt any growing pains with it being a new program as far as the curriculum or the organization or?
No, I don't think so. I am the second class at my school, so maybe that was why I didn't really feel it as much. Maybe the first class did. But if anything, they're so receptive of things that we need, or I don't know. For instance, some of us were studying in the lecture hall, and we were like, hey, it'd be really awesome if we had another whiteboard that we could move around, because some of these lecture halls, they just don't have that. They're all built in. They were like, within 30 minutes, they brought a new whiteboard for us. Like things like that you might not get at a school that's been around forever. And, which I think, well-established schools are obviously very good, but I just felt at home with this school. So
David had a follow-up, which is,
yeah.
From what you're hearing from some of the older students, which would be the previous year,
yeah,
are you having high step 1 pass rates?
I think so. They just took their boards like this past month in June, and they started rotations July 1st. So from what I know, most of them are doing rotations. I haven't heard of anyone not passing their boards yet. If they did, it might be that they were like already struggling and maybe shouldn't have taken them yet, which I think is a lot of the issue. If you're barely passing all your classes and your school's basically taking a chance on you and saying, yeah, go ahead and take your boards, we'll see, then you probably shouldn't take them yet. But from what I hear, they're all doing their rotations, so that means they passed.
What kind of population do you see at your school in particular as far as age or general diversity of the students themselves? Because, obviously we are non-traditional. We're parents, military, second careers, second changes, first-time students.
Well, I can tell you, just in our first year, students in our class, we've had 3 babies, so that's exciting. Something I really like about osteopathic medicine, at least for those schools, is they're very well-rounded. They like well-rounded people. So they like people that are non-traditional students. They like you to have experience. It brings a lot of really interesting people into each class. I mean, we have people who are straight from undergrad and went through undergrad really fast, so they're really young. And then we have a woman who's in her 50s and has a 20-year-old son, and she her son has some mental disabilities, but so she works like super hard. She's such an amazing person. And so, we have just like a ton of different people. We have this one student who is actually from Pakistan and moved here. He was a medical student in Pakistan, moved here, had to restart med school because of our, obviously our curriculum laws and things. But it's just a really diverse group of people. As far as where I'm located, it's a pretty rural environment. My school itself is in a normal kind of sized city, but all around there's pretty rural, kind of farm towns. So you get a lot of patients who maybe have never seen a doctor, or maybe there's one doctor in the town who does everything. From delivering your babies to also like helping with your animals, because that's the only person around. So it's actually really interesting. The patient population is very supportive of the school, which I think is so big. I didn't realize that I wanted a community that was so supportive. And our school is also very supportive of the community. We recently had like really, really bad flooding, and a lot of our students basically had to pick up and move. The Midwest was like a mess over there. And the community came out and helped us, and vice versa. So that was pretty interesting. So
got a couple questions going back a little bit.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
And feel free to take a breath.
No, we're good.
For all the talking.
I'll drink some water.
Yes. Okay. So going back a little bit before.
Yeah.
How?
Oh, wait, can I address something really quick?
Yeah, sure.
Whoever said that their top choice is like a newer school,
3 years old.
Do it. Don't let that affect you. If it's your top choice, do it. You have to. Every school pretty much has the same curriculum. You're going to all take the same boards. But if it's a place that you feel you're going to work the best in and it's going to make you feel the most comfortable, go there. Everyone's going to pass their boards. at least for DO school, COCA is the association that makes sure that each school is accredited. And I don't know in any of the history if they've ever taken away accreditation of a school that just opened. So like, you're going to get an education, you're going to be fine. And every school that opens up has to have like $40 million put aside so that in case for some crazy reason they don't get fully accredited, they will pay for you to be transferred to another med school. It's insane. They will pay for your cost of living. They will like set you up because it's their problem. So like, you're fine. You're going to get through med school. But if it's like a newer school, like whatever, but pick where you're going to be the best student, if that makes sense.
How did you pick? Did you pick based on pro-con list type thing or your interviews?
The interviews are huge. Yeah, I just completely felt at home there. My interview was really good. I felt the people were real, if that makes sense. Like some of the interviews you'll go on, man, they're going to just try to ask you the hardest questions and see where you are as far as like how fast you are on your feet. Like, and they're really going to try to trick you and stuff, which is good. I understand why they do that. But at the same time, if they're making you feel uncomfortable, like, I don't know. I don't want my professors to always do that. And I didn't get that feel with my school. I felt like they really wanted to get to know me because once you get to the interview point, like they already have pretty much a decision about you. And so now it's more, do you like them? If that makes sense. So they're trying to impress you. If they're not trying to impress you during your interview, like then you're probably just a number, if that.
You can know what to expect from an education with them.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
all right.
Sorry to go back.
No, you're good because it's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing out questions. So there were a couple questions about how important was your volunteer experience in the medical field and otherwise while applying.
Yeah.
And we could probably expand that to how did you decide what to talk about in your applications and your interviews? How do you prioritize from your personal experience, your academic experience, your professional experience, clinical research? How do you best package that? And do you have to alter that depending on where you're applying, or is it, how do you feel that one out?
For med school, you do one personal statement and it goes out to all the schools. I think volunteer work is very important. Clearly, clinical volunteer work is important because they want to see that not only do you have an idea of what the medical field is like, but you like it. I mean, kind of weird to say, but a lot of people go into medicine and they don't end up liking it. And so their job is to make sure that you don't go into debt and decide you hate medicine halfway through. So as far as volunteer experience, if you can volunteer in a hospital a few hours a week or every month, whatever you can do, I think that's really important. I think the biggest thing on your application is to make sure that you show you're a well-rounded individual. So you cover all the bases. You do research. You have volunteer experience in both a clinical and a non-clinical setting. And obviously your grades are, good and your MCAT scores are good. But I think if you can do something that makes you stand out, that's really big. For instance, in my personal statement, I talked about, I kind of described some of the struggles I've been on through school or just any other situation, which helps show that you persevere and you're dedicated and you're going to be a strong student. But I did talk about something that I think helped me stand out during the application process, and that was that I did Irish dance growing up. And that's something that's really unique. Most med students don't really do Irish dance. Like it's not your normal average. Everyone's going to work in a hospital. Everyone's going to, do, food banks and that, and those are all good and you should do stuff like that. But if you can make something that stands out, that's very, very helpful. So I did that. I worked with, I did some interesting volunteer things. I worked with the American Academy of Pediatrics, and we were basically helping little kids try to learn what's healthy and what's not. Like I'm talking like preschool kids who maybe their parents don't have that education. So you start them young and then they already have it in their mind, like what's good and what's bad. Like don't drink a soda, drink water, that kind of thing. So that was a pretty interesting experience that I think helped set me aside from other, normal volunteer activities. But anything that you can do, I think if you can do stuff like, I don't know how to describe it. Like, show that you can stick with something for a long time.
Longevity.
Yeah, thank you. So like if you can like make sure that every month or every 2 weeks you go do like XYZ volunteer activity, that shows application or administration that you are committed to something, you like doing it, you like to work in the community. Those are all really, really big things as a physician because that's literally what you're going to be doing. So if you are like with a church, stick with that, do volunteer activities through there. I would just say make yourself all rounded. So do a bunch of different things, but don't go crazy, you know, like don't dip your feet in too many, you know, that's around.
Yeah.
I'm losing all my
No
stuff.
worries.
Yeah.
Show that you can commit to something and stick with it.
Yeah. But also make yourself well rounded, you know, super easy.
How did you decide when to take your MCAT?
she just patted her stomach and or other way around. Okay,
which is like doubly relevant because Nick is pregnant. All right. As far as MCAT cycles, how did you decide when to take it?
Oh yeah. Well, took it a few times because that's fun. I kind of didn't do it the right way. I was going to school full time and working part time, and I decided like, oh, I could easily study for the MCAT and take it. Like, yeah, no big deal. No, don't do that. Like, if you can take a summer off of working, it's hard because I know like you want an income and you probably need it. That's just how life is. But if you can spare it, that would be awesome, and dedicate like 3 months of studying for it, full on studying. I'm talking like make it your full-time job, like, you know, 8 hours a day. So I didn't do as well as I wanted to on my first exam. So I took it again and then ended up doing better. I did one of those Kaplan classes, and to be honest, I don't think it was worth the money. The only thing I thought it was good at was it made you go to class like every night, and it kind of forced you to study every night. However, if you got behind or you weren't focused that day in the class, you're kind of now way behind because
ASU pays for Princeton review materials for the MCAT for students.
Okay, yeah, Princeton review I think is really good. As recommend books. Yeah, I loved, gosh, I don't even know if they still have it. I loved Exam Cracker for my MCAT because they have really weird ways of teaching you things. I'm a big like mnemonic, like draw weird stuff out to help me remember, like memory palaces, if you know anything about those, like that's kind of how I learn. So Exam Crackers was really good for that. It's exam and then crackers with a K. And the cool thing about that was they also have an audio version. So I had to commute to my undergraduate, like 26 miles there and back. So for me, I would listen to those audio books basically on the drives. And that was just like another way of getting information in. I mean, it wasn't super cool, but you know, like that's how med school is.
You got into med school.
Yeah,
so
like it worked.
It's for the end goal there.
Yeah.
You get where you're going.
So that was really good. If you have someone that you can study with who's also going through the process studying for med school or studying for the MCAT, that's really helpful too, to like bounce off different ways. Like, I can't get this concept, or I keep getting this kind of problem wrong. Teach me how you do it. Find someone that has different strengths than you. If someone's really good at physics and you're not, maybe try to study with them. And that could just be someone in your class, maybe if you guys are all on the same schedule.
We have a chat group that is pre-med on here.
Oh,
and
okay.
there are people at all different stages of the cycle. Some people have already taken MCAT and are working on applications.
Yeah.
People are prepping for MCAT. Others are just kind of figuring out if it's where they want to go.
Yeah. I have a tip about the MCAT. So my first MCAT I took was the old version. So it was still on the scale of like 30 was your high score. My second one was the newer version, which it's like the 500s or something. And so I went from a 4-hour exam to an 8-hour exam. So that was a really big switch for me. I can tell you though, the reason why it's an 8-hour exam is because they added a psychology aspect of it. So I kind of figured out that my score for the physics, chemistry, like verbal and biology sections, which are the normal sections, I was like, my score is not going to change a whole lot. It's a lot. You have to study a lot to change your score, like a few points. But I knew that I could like, can I say? Mm-hmm. I could bust my ass and kill the psychology section because that's like pure memorization. And that was the new section. And then I knew people, I mean,
no offense, psychology, yeah, but you're easy.
Well, no, it's just that most med students take like one psychology class because that's what you have to do for required, like that's the requirement. But I knew that that was my way to jump ahead. Like that was my way to get my higher score. So I like killed my psychology. Like it's pure memorization. Like you're going to kill it if you just sit there and memorize everything. But it was funny then because on my interview, well, a few of my interviews, they were like, your psychology section is very high and your other sections are like good, but like what? Like you're not a psychology major. Like how, you know? And I was like, well, you know, like I kind of saw my way to work it. Like you got to play the game basically. So if you can do it, focus on that way more than some of the other med students or pre-meds are doing, because that's where they're going to slack off. They're like, oh, I'm good at bio. I'll kill the bio section. No, it's not that easy. Like, so psychology. Yeah.
Did you have to do Casper? Did that come up during your application cycle?
I don't know what Casper is, so no.
All right. David, follow-up question, because I don't know what it is either.
Yeah, let me know what that is, and then maybe they've changed the name or something.
No, it's a relatively new test. I was just looking at ARCOM, and they now require it. And so I was curious to get some insight because it's in essence it's literally dubbed a psych eval, and it's rough. So I was just curious if you had any insight.
I have never heard of that. I think it's kind of good they're doing it. You have to study for really. Oh.
It's loosely based on typing speed. So you get 3 secondary type prompts. They'll give you a situation, somebody's done something unethical, illegal, or immoral, and then you have 5 minutes to write essays for 3 questions about it.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds like what I had to do in my other interviews. When I was going through the interview process, every school was into MMIs. Those are multiple mini interviews. And that is you are at the door, like someone's office, basically, like one of the teacher's office, and there's a prompt on the outside, and it tells you a case. It could be ethical. It could be, you know, your patient comes in, you have to tell them how to, you know, that their mom's dying. How are you going to do that? You know, and basically a bell goes off and you walk in the room and you have to, with the interviewer, you have to act out that scene as the physician. So that sounds like kind of what they're doing, but on, I mean, obviously it's more psych related, but on a virtual, I don't know, a virtual way of doing it. So you don't have to always go to the campus. Yeah. The typing speed, ooh, that is like the biggest thing I can recommend. Like once you get into med school, spend some time and type, because it is insane. To give you an idea of how you have to like basically practice. I don't know if you've heard of standardized patients, but every med school has them. They're basically actors from the community that are trained to be the patient. So they know all of the things they should say, all the places that they should say it hurts and they shouldn't, you know, all the like keywords to make you be like, oh yeah, this is, you know, appendicitis versus something else. And they're paid very well. And
did that in Grey's Anatomy, didn't they?
Yeah. You have, my school, you have like 14 minutes in the exam room with them, and you are the doctor and you have to do everything basically. And they try to trick you and all this stuff. But the crazy thing, at least for my school, is you have to then walk out of the room and you have 9 minutes to write an entire complete note typed. The keyboard, like the software, and just to give you a heads up, this is exactly how your board exam will be before you can graduate med school. One of your board exams, you'll have to like basically do this with 12 patients in a row. It's a very long day. Yeah, but you have 9 minutes to write that entire note. The keyboard sucks, okay? And they make it suck because, I don't know, they want you to fail maybe. And then also the software does not like capitalize things for you or spell check things for you. And so if you're not a good typer, if you're not very accurate at typing, or if you're slow, oh my gosh, 9 minutes goes so fast. Like, it is insane. And it's easy to write, like, your patient came in with a sore throat. Like, that's easy. But then when you have to do a full exam and type out that full exam in a way that is going to get approved for billing, basically, there's certain keywords you have to write in order to get reimbursed for that part of the exam. I mean, it's very hard. So if you're not a fast typer, try to practice. There's all kinds of like typing games on Google and stuff. Just in general, that will help you. Also in lectures, I was just telling you earlier today, I have one professor that I just know that I have to type every single thing he says, because he will pick out certain little details on his, like for his exam questions. So if you're not a fast typer, it's just going to take you longer and longer to, get through those lectures and things like that.
So turn off autocorrect and practice your typing.
Yeah, honestly, turn off autocorrect. Turn off, I think there's a way on Microsoft Word you can turn off that it capitalizes the beginning of a sentence, things like that. But that's stuff you can do like the summer before you start med school. Like, don't kill yourself now. But yeah, if you're a fast typer, play some games or something. So.
All right, you guys think about more questions. You can drop them in the chat. I would ask, what are some things that if you were doing it again, you wish you knew sooner?
Oh gosh.
Maybe you think about that too.
I think,
Sorry, I should have given that one to you.
Well, okay. I wish I had learned how to study how I have to study now. I wish I had done that all through undergrad. To give you an idea, like I was saying, I'm kind of a mnemonic visual type person. I like to draw things out, especially in biochem. There's like a lot of processes and like it takes time though. That's the problem. But in undergrad, I had like gorgeous notes, like color coordinated, like that was my jam. But you have no time for that. And so I think the first semester of med school, I was struggling with how do I turn that part off, but still be efficient in my studying, because you don't have time to draw everything. And everyone's a different learner, a different type of learner. So find what you think works for you, but be really flexible. And another thing, which isn't totally, I don't know. I'm just going to say, do not compare yourself. It sounds like way easier than it is, but that's like literally the downfall. Like same with your MCATs, like don't ask how someone else is studying. Don't ask what someone else got on their practice exam. Like, do you know what you need to fix? Like, make a plan for yourself to get to where you need to get to. Just don't compare yourself, because that's the downfall. So.
David's asked, how have you read the NIH study, How to Learn Effectively in Medical School? Test yourself, learn actively, and repeat in intervals. I know it is recommended first-year reading at some Texas schools. If so, how accurate is it?
I have not read that. If you have, let me know what it says to give you an idea of what I have learned now that I've completed my first year. I now know that I love Anki. If you guys know what that is or not, ANKI. It's flashcards. It's spatial recognition. So you do you can either make your own flashcards. There's a lot of flashcards out there. I'm sure just for your general undergraduate classes, there's tons of flashcards out there. And you basically rate yourself on how you think you did on that flashcard. And then it shows you those flashcards at certain day intervals until you master them. And that is huge, because memorizing is like the biggest thing you're going to need to do in med school. So if you're not good at memorizing, try to do that now. Try to find ways that work for you to memorize something. Sometimes I am sitting in my apartment and I am talking things out to no one. Like, I need to say it because that helps me memorize it. Sometimes I have to go through a flashcard for 30 minutes. I have to do like 5 flashcards, and I just keep flipping through those 5 flashcards, and then 11 o'clock at night. I don't know. Sometimes like weird things like that work for me. But do you make your own, or have you find med school class that's already? Yeah, there are a lot of med school like Anki decks already out there, especially when you start studying for boards. There's like, I have one deck that's like 22,000 flashcards. It's insane. But I find that I like to make my own. It's pretty similar to making your own study guide. And if someone shares their study guide with you, it's not the same. You're not going to get the same out of it. So
the act of making it solidifies your knowledge.
Yeah, and you kind of learn what works for you. I have some classmates that they like to just put like a keyword on their flashcard, and then that works for them. It triggers, what the answer is for them. I need to write it out in a question. Like, what will your patient present with for this disease? Or, what is the pharmacology of, this medication? Or, I have to write it out in a question, and you write it out in a few different ways. So like, if you're like, what's the capital of California? You're like, Sacramento, but also like, Sacramento is the capital of what? And,
Sacramento is to California.
Yeah, you have to kind of get your brain to think of it different ways, because the way they say it in class is great and all, but I can guarantee you on the exams, they're not going to present it that way, because it's med school. Like, they're not going to make it easy for you. So you have to be prepared for things to be totally flipped upside down. But yeah, I don't know about that book. I should read it.
David, have you read the study? Do you know what kind of things they're advising?
It's just a standard active learning. I was just curious. I can link the study for anyone who's interested. Texas schools have it as required reading, or some. And it got recommended down to me, so.
Yeah, it sounds really interesting. I do also like, I think it's called the Pomodoro way of studying, which is you study for 25 minutes and then you take a break. And you study for 25, even if you're in the middle of like a paragraph, basically, you have to stop. Because you could end up sitting there for hours and hours and hours, and that's not you're just gonna get burnt out. You're not gonna remember anything you just studied. So that helps too. Setting timers for yourself, turning your phone off, putting your phone in a different room. Noise canceling headphones are the best purchase you could ever make for med school, or even your master's program, or PhD, any of them. There was a question up here.
Yeah, go for it.
I think we just skipped over.
I think I know what you're talking about. It was a little lower. Grades. Does it matter if your grades are low at the start of your bachelor's?
I think it matters less than you think, because a lot of the classes you take in the beginning are not very important as far as med school. The biggest thing they want to see is that you can overcome that. And having a low GPA in the beginning of your educational career is hard to overcome, because an A- and a B are like very different on a GPA. If your school doesn't do, if your school does A- and
they do, or ASU does.
Yeah, and that can totally drop your GPA more than you think. So obviously, if you can, try to avoid the minuses, because that helps. But sometimes you just can't. Like, life happens. But the biggest thing is to really, really work hard and try to overcome that. But also, in a way, it's kind of good, because it gives you something to write about in your personal statement, something to talk about, something to prove that you can overcome, just slip-ups, and maybe it was that you just didn't know how to study when you're just out of high school in the beginning. Like, you don't know what to do, so it's all a part of growing. And if you can just kind of phrase it like that in your interviews and your personal statement and things like that, it really helps to show them that you're human and you can overcome it. So
one of the other categories of questions we've had surrounds work-life balance. And I would ask about your experience personally, and how you manage that, but then also people in your program who have families, who have kids, who had, and it can go from as far as your study habits and your living arrangement, but also how do you balance that when you're looking at rotations and residencies and moving for med school and moving for,
all
of it. And I realize that not all of that is necessarily in your field, but I know that you've been exposed to a lot of different personal struggles in that way with other people.
It's hard. Med school's hard. They always say, oh, med school's a full-time job. No, it's a lifetime job. It's an all-day job. But I think you have to figure out what works for you, what makes you happy. And you'll very soon figure out if you're a morning studier or a night studier. I can study usually till about 11:30, and then my brain's done. Like, I have to turn it off.
AM or PM?
Oh, PM, sorry. I have some friends that will study until 4 a.m, and that's what works for them. And if that's fine and that works with your schedule, then like with your life schedule, then do it. We have a lot of students in my class who are parents, who have multiple kids, and they have to make it work around school schedules and things like that. So a lot of times they will, you go to your classes, your labs, that's your full-time job. You come home and they, be a parent for however long they need to, as far as like turning school off and being a parent. And then they'll study like when the kids go to sleep, and they'll study for hours and hours and hours. And like, it's tiring, but you have to do what works for you and what makes you happy and keeps you going. Another good tip is find study partners who are similar to you. So if you have other people in your class who are parents or going to be parents, and you have kids yourself, it makes it really easy as far as scheduling goes. Maybe you guys all get to school really early and do study groups. Maybe you help take care of each other's kids certain days, you do carpools, things like that. They don't let you work during med school, so that's not really a big problem. At least my school you're not allowed to work. What else? I would say like try to take at least an hour for yourself every day doing something you like if it's cooking. I personally like to get up in the morning, like probably way earlier compared to some people in my class. And I I get dressed, I curl my hair, I do my makeup, like things that other people like probably don't even care about. That's what I like. And I listen to the news while I do it. It's kind of like me time. I like to work out in the evenings, that kind of thing. You'll figure out what works for you. And obviously there's going to be times when you don't have time for some of that stuff, because of a really heavy exam schedule or stuff like that. I don't know if that helps. But.
Yeah, David asked, what does a typical day look like for you as far as class and studying goes?
Okay, I'm a person that likes to go to class. Most med schools don't make you go to class. Everything's recorded, so you can sit home and watch it in your pajamas and never see anybody, and that's totally fine. But I found myself needing to be there, needing to see the professor, like even see what they're wearing, because sometimes when I'm studying and I'm like, there's times when you're studying for an exam and you don't remember even listening to that lecture once. You're like, this is new information, crap. But sometimes you're like, oh no, that was when that one professor was wearing that really weird dress, and so little things like that help me. So anyways, my days usually, class starts at 8, sometimes 7 in the morning, and my school's really awesome. We get a full 1 hour lunch break. I know some schools don't do that. So that's really nice. And everyone takes a break, like the professors, the administration. So that's really nice. So I live on campus and by myself, and I walk home for lunch, get to have a nice hour to myself. And then I go back to campus for probably 2 more hours of lecture. So I would say lectures from 8 to 2 or 3, depending on what they're throwing at us.
With a lunch break.
With a lunch break in between. And then there are 2 or 3 days that you usually will have probably 4 or 5 lectures in the morning. You'll have lunch, and then you'll have lab until about 4 or 5 in the evening. And labs are, your basic lab of like, here's how to use your stethoscope, like that kind of thing. And then other labs, I'm a DO student, so I have to learn osteopathic manipulation. So, you have a lab for that. They have a simulation lab where they send you in with, 1 or 2 other med students. They throw you in and you have a mannequin, and you don't know what's wrong with them, and you have to try to not make them die.
They did that on Grey's Anatomy too.
My mannequins have died before, but that's, part of med school, Or you'll have, for us, every Friday you have either a simulation, which is the mannequin, or you'll have a standardized patient, which is one of those real actors. And so that's really good experience. My school does, it's kind of a new thing. A lot of schools are now doing it. they do something called team-based learning, or you might hear it as like problem-based learning. And for us, that's every Monday in the morning. You walk in and basically you're given all these questions, and you and your group of, I don't know, 5 or 6 other med students have to figure out what's wrong with the patient, and you have to work together and come up with a plan. And, you know, there's a bunch of questions that lead you to figure out what the diagnosis is, and it's usually something that you have not learned in class. So there's a lot of like putting pieces together. There's a lot of researching online, figuring out, you know, what's the newest study for this, what are, you know, physicians, how are they treating, you know, XYZ. So that's kind of a cool way to break you out. You're not sitting in a lecture hall. What else? We don't really have a lot of quizzes. My school, we do also, before you're given that patient case, you have a really simple like 5-10 question quiz every Monday morning, and it's stuff that you're going to be learning that week. It's not worth many points, but I think they do it to kind of get you to stay on top of things. And it's also kind of cool because you'll kind of figure out what you're learning that week. I don't know if that, like, everything moves so fast that like it kind of helps you put together in a really simple quiz. You're like, okay, I'm going to learn about lungs and these diseases. And you kind of have a good framework of then what you're going to do for the rest of the week.
Separate one day from the next.
Yeah. So that's kind of my schedule. As far as like then what I do, as far as studying, I will go home. I'll usually try to take at least like a 30-minute break after lectures just to kind of like decompress for a little bit. That could be like then I'm like cooking dinner, or I go work out, or just sit on my bed and look at Instagram or something, like something that you don't have to think. And then I jump right into it. I started in the beginning of med school, I started rewatching lectures, and that sort of helped me. But I found it was a lot of time. So at this point, I just make flashcards at night based on the lectures I had that day. So that's kind of how I study. So
is OMM first year only, or does it span multiple years?
Yeah, you do OMM first week, and you do it every single week until you graduate, basically. Except for, I mean, on rotations, it depends on what site you're at and what rotation you're doing. Some preceptors on your rotations will make you do OMM. Like some of the students that I that shadowed in the same clinic as I did one day, like during spring break, the preceptor was like, okay, take a full history of this patient and now go treat them, go do OMM. And you're like, I know stuff, but I don't know everything, you know? So yeah, at least with my school and most DO schools, it's very early clinical experience, very early OMM experience, and you do it over and over and over and over till you figure out what is normal, and then that helps you really understand what is not normal. So
throw you in until you learn how to swim.
Yep, basically. So it's a lot easier to practice on each other and patients in your community than before you're on rotations and have to really know what you're doing. So
we had a question from somebody who could not come today, and there's actually quite a few people that will be watching the recording afterwards. And
great,
she asked, yeah, shout out there. What effect do DO professors and students predict the merger of DO and MD residencies in 2020 will have on match rates for DO students? My presumption is MDs and DOs will be competing with one another for residencies, but frankly, I have no idea if that's accurate. If that is the case, what can aspiring and current DO students do to make themselves more competitive?
Yeah, that is, so no one really knows how that's going to affect things. I mean, even all the med schools are kind of like, we have ideas of what's going to happen, but no one really knows yet. And the first year that it will be combined will be this coming class that is matching. So the 2020 class. So people who are fourth years right now, like starting right now, are going to be applying for the new combined system.
So when you apply, you will also be in that.
Yeah, when I apply, so I'm the class of 2022, so they will be already done 2 years of that. I'll be the third class that's going to be going through that process. I think it's going to be very interesting. From what I kind of gather, if you don't know what it is, basically DO schools are now going to be, DO residency programs are now going to be accepting MD students into their residency programs and vice versa, which they do already do that, but it's not as equal, I would say right now. They just, in the past few months, all the accreditation systems just decided that the COMLEX, which is the DO board exam, is now equivalent to the USMLE, which is the MD exams. So basically they will understand what your score is. Like a primarily DO residency will understand what this MD board exam score means. So they can kind of compare you on the same level, which I think is good. They're very kind of different exams, but it's good that they have kind of a basis now. I personally think that if a residency is primarily DOs, let's say all the preceptors are DOs, and they probably have a better connection with DOs because you have a different understanding of how the body works and is put together and how you would treat a patient as far as using your hands. So I think some of them are going to remain more DO, but they're going to be open to MDs. So it's going to be a weird transition. I'm not really sure how it's going to. I've heard some people say it's going to be interesting for 2 years and then it's going to basically go back to what it was, where it's MDs are going to stay MD and DOs are going to stay DO. So
that might be the growing pain that David was asking about with new schools and DOs.
Yeah, and I think the DOs are primarily end up going into family medicine, pediatrics, and more of those primary care specialties. And I think it's kind of going to stay similar to that, just because that's what you're a little bit more trained for that. That's kind of ingrained in the philosophy of DO is to treat the whole person, and that's very family medicine oriented, or pediatrics, or very those kind of specialties. So I think we're still going to be okay with those kind of specialties. Something that definitely they are pushing up in med schools is the amount of research you're doing. They are making you do so much more research now, because now that you will be competing with an MD student, which is they already do a lot of research. You have to kind of meet that same requirement. So they're pushing that, which I think at this point, everyone who applies to med school already is going to try to have research under their belt. So it's not that much different, at least. But
one more thing to balance still.
What? Yeah.
Speaking of balancing, got another question.
Yeah.
If you don't mind me asking, how do you manage financially? Or how do you financially manage DO school because of not working? Bills, rent. I have a toddler and we're not comfortable with a single income. Any tips?
Yes. I'm doing federal loans. It's sucky because you see at the end of the year how much you took out and how much debt you're in, and that's not fun to see. If you have the ability to, if you have the time, maybe during the summer before you start med school, try to get some scholarships. A lot of them are essays that you have to write, which aren't that difficult. They just take time. And a lot of money just doesn't get given out because people don't apply for the scholarship. So if you can do that, that helps. Something that one reason I also chose my school is because it's the third lowest tuition in the country or something to that extent. It's very low as far as, well, obviously state schools. I know there's if you're in Texas, the state schools are really, if you're a Texas resident, it's very cheap for you to go to med school, which I wish I had that, but I was California resident, so California doesn't care. They're give us all your money. So I took out loans. I had some money coming in just from working, so that helped me not have to take out as many loans. I would say do whatever you can. For instance, textbooks wise, my school provides all of our textbooks as ebooks, and they're always available. So that's helpful. It might take some adjustment if you're not an ebook type person, but you guys are all online classes, so you're probably already pretty good at that. So that saves you a lot of money. Textbooks are very expensive. What else? try to like really not take out like as many loans as you think you might need. Like, don't go crazy. Like, they always say, like, you live like a med student even in residency, because you're still poor. And even if you're getting paid, you're not getting paid a lot. Something else you can look into is like obviously the military scholarships. That we have a lot of students in my school that are doing that, and that's great. They give you a stipend every month or every semester to use. But you know, it does require you then to use your summer for, you know, boot camp and things like that. And if you're totally okay with being sent to whoever, you know, who knows where to practice, then that's a really cool experience if you can do that. I personally didn't feel like that was something I wanted to do. So that's kind of how I did it. There's also other programs like public service loan forgiveness program, which basically says, you know, you take out your federal loans, and then as you start to practice, you choose to practice full time at a nonprofit hospital, which is really easy to do because they're like everywhere. Like the hospital I did research at was a nonprofit hospital. It's very easy to find them. And I mean, if you know you're going to be working full time anyways, you know, work at a nonprofit. And the way it works is then basically you work at any nonprofit, and you can jump around to different ones, but you work there full time for 10 years and you make your federal loan payments like you would normally, but they're at a very small amount now. They like lower the amount you have to pay per month, and you pay them for 10 years. And then after 10 years, the government will take care of the rest of your loans. There's a lot of fine print with all those kind of forgiveness programs and the military scholarships and those things. So try to really pay attention to those, because a lot of people have found that they don't get their loans forgiven because they didn't fill out paperwork right, or they don't make XYZ consecutive payments or things like that. That's all stuff that you can kind of get into later once you're figuring out how to pay off your loans. But I would say probably 90%, 99%, well, that's kind of dramatic, maybe like 95% of the students in my school are doing either federal loans or military scholarship or health service scholarships. So you're not alone, but live within your means, be smart, share resources. If you need certain books that your school doesn't have, try to split it with classmates or an upperclassman, you know, buy like hand-me-down stethoscopes, things like that. My school, we had a scholarship, like we had a family donate a lot of money to us, and they bought all of our stethoscopes for us, engraved and stuff. So things like that are nice. So yeah, just don't look at your loans. It sucks. What else?
Lauren said, for pharmacy school, I know you can sell your soul to Walgreens for a couple of years. Are there any companies that do that for med school?
Well, during med school, no, you can't work. I know pharmacy, my school actually does a cool thing. We have to do a research project with pharmacy students from a different school. So that was really cool to see how they were studying pretty similar stuff that we were, but like their schedules were totally different. Like they have to work during school. It's weird. Like I was like, wait, what? Like they would like go to class and then they have to go to work. Like I think it was like an internship or something like that. But yeah, it'd be at like Walgreens or wherever.
Part of the education.
And I was like, wow, I'll give lots of props to you, because like I go home and I'm like, what? So there's nothing like that I know of for med school, because most don't let you work during med school. But I know after med school, you know, you do your residency and you get paid for that, not that much, but you do get paid. And then after you have completed your residency, you're officially a board certified, you know, whatever physician you're going to be. And there's lots of ways you can make a lot of money. If you're willing to work in a rural environment, that is like huge. You can make so much money. It's ridiculous. Like if you like that environment, or if you live in a bigger city that you then can drive, you know, 20, 30 minutes to a rural area, and that could be where you work, you can make a lot of money there because there's such a big physician shortage that they need doctors and they're willing to pay. Yes, they have a lot of loan forgiveness too, whoever just said that.
Sam.
It's awesome. So my school's in Arkansas, and Arkansas is number 50 as far as their health, so that's fun. And they're also like the worst state for the amount of physicians they have. I heard it's something like one family doctor for every 6,000 patients. So they are basically doing anything they can to get you to stay there. And I'm talking like most, I was reading somewhere that they'll, like most other states will pay you your normal salary, you know, but they'll also give you like $25,000 or something extra a year if you're in a rural environment. Like most states have that kind of process, but Arkansas will give you like $50,000, like basically double it for every year that you're willing to stay there. And like that on top of your normal income, like that could be the difference of you paying off your loans. Like, you know, it's insane. So they're very forgiving. If you show that you like to work in that area, the people surrounding that area will take notice, and they will, I mean, we have some students who have been born and raised in Arkansas, go to school there now, and they already have jobs set up for them. Like they're guaranteed, they're getting a lot of their school paid for because they're willing to go back to their community hospital. So yeah, there's definitely ways to do it. What else? There's also something called locum tenens, if you've ever heard of that, especially for ER doctors, if that's really big. Basically, like, for example, you have a hospital and one of the doctors has to, you know, take like a medical leave, or a big one is like maternity leave. Well, the hospital's not going to hire someone new and sign them on for a year or two. They only need someone for, you know, the 3 months or whatever. So locum tenens is kind of like, you're kind of like a traveling doctor, and you can set your location. You're like, I want to work in California or Arizona, and they'll, you know, I think you can narrow it down to like specific counties and stuff. And you kind of like go in there and work for a month or two or however long they need you. You sign a contract, you make so much money. And if you have the kind of lifestyle that you can, you know, pick up and move wherever you want, that's a cool way to experience different areas. You're like, hey, I want to go work in New York for a month. Like, why not? Like, you know, cool. You make a ton of money. It's insane. So there's all kinds of options to think about there. So.
David asked if you have any classmates that you know of that have completed their prerequisites or degrees online.
Ooh, that's a good question, because it's now becoming way more of a thing, I think, than it was in the past few years. I mean, I completed classes online, not all of them, but I did take some online classes. I don't know about people who've completed their like entire degree online, at least for my school, but I would not be surprised if like this next incoming class, if that's like a thing now, because
ASU's program is only in its second year, and we are
that's
the
what
first.
I mean. Yeah, it's starting to become much more of a thing. I mean, I don't think it really matters as long as you have, you know, the patient capability, like as long as you're a normal person and can interact with patients and people, and you seem, you know, no red flags, and that's kind of stuff that they'll figure out on their interview with you. So I think it actually makes you more efficient because you clearly know how to communicate with people online, which is very hard to do sometimes.
Pre-Health did a speech to us as the online students during labs. And one of the things they were talking about is that they're having a lot of trouble getting the schools to even accept applications.
Oh, yeah.
With online credits, because our program is probably more of a hybrid program than some of the others that exist, as far as because we do the labs in person on campus, have that experience. And I believe what was said, and for you guys that were there too, is that they had gotten the data from schools just in the couple of weeks before we'd gotten there, and it was already vastly different from the 6 months previous when they had surveyed schools, as far as just getting people to have a conversation with them about what it means for their students. So there's a lot of people have talked about here that, you know, as far as for personal statements and all that, like there's a lot of really good values in being online, and for everybody's reason for being online, but as far as for just getting the schools to even look at you.
Yeah, well, I think at least for med school, we'll probably all like terminal degrees, PhD, pharmacy, you know, all of those. I mean, your GPA matters, obviously, but it's really hard even with, you know, actual like standing schools, brick and mortar schools, like everyone's schools grade differently. Mm-hmm. So like you could have an A in the class, but you're only one of 10 people, or versus an A in the class and be one of, I had some classes that were 400 students. Like, so that's why they have those exams like MCATs and PCATs. And I don't know, all the other ones.
GREs.
GREs, yeah,
DHT.
GMAT, yeah. Anyways, they have all those to compare you on a standard, basis. So I think just like kill your GPA, kill your MCATs or whatever, and then prove yourself in your interview and your personal statement and your volunteer experience. That's like the way to set yourself up. So.
But then like, don't kill yourself. Give yourself like an hour. So you have the work-life balance.
Yeah, don't go crazy. It's very easy to go crazy like during that process because it's like so unknown. You could do like the best you can, and then your top school doesn't want you to even interview, and you're like, what? But then a random school you never even thought of wants you to interview, and you're like, okay, like, let's see what this happens. So. What else?
I think we're current.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and we've gone over everything that was previously asked, and I'm here for a couple more days with Laura. So if you watch the recording later, you have more questions, I can pester. I personally would be curious because I think this is one of the greatest questions you can ask anybody for anything, which is, what do you look around and see other people doing and go, don't do that?
Ooh, that's hard. Well, when you're in med school, I can say don't go crazy about like your grades because it kind of doesn't matter. Like you're going to pass your classes, you're going to be a doctor, or you're going to be a pharmacist, or you're going to be a PA, or whatever it is you're going into. But like everyone in your class is going to do that too. So like, don't kill yourself over your grades. Like it's okay to get a B, which is insane because like if you're pre-med or pre-health, like you're like, no, I have to get an A, But like when you're then in a class of 160, 200 people and everyone is like you, everyone is like, I'm top of my class. Like I'm an A student. Like good luck trying to be top of your class A student. Like it's very difficult. And one girl in my class, I remember her saying like her first semester, she would study all day, sleep for like 3 hours, wake up, study again for like 3 hours, sleep for 2 hours. I'm like, no, you can't kill yourself. Like you still have to live. Mm-hmm. And when I was doing research, I was at a children's hospital and they had a fellowship program, and I kind of got to help them with their fellowship program interviews. And it was really insightful to see that the doctors that were already working there, and this is the same for when you go to residency or when you're just applying for any of your jobs in the future. Like they don't really care what you got on your stats because like everyone's the same at that point. Like when you're applying for a job, everyone's the same. But if you're like weird, if you can't like talk to people and work with people and like fit in with that group of people, like they don't want you. For instance, I remember they interviewed an MD, MD, PhD, very well established, had tons of research, very good in his specialty, but he was really weird. And everyone who was gonna have to work with him were like, this is gonna change our entire dynamic. And like, as good as his stats are, like they have to work with you every day and they want you to stay on forever. So, like you have to be human too. So yeah, focus on your grades and stuff like that, but also like do well, get through it, but then, be normal too. It's kind of hard to describe, but like you're human, and the people who are going to be interviewing you and giving you a job are also human, and they know you can do it. But another thing is, I've heard some residency directors tell us that they actually kind of prefer people that they have seen their GPA go from lower to higher, even in med school, because it shows them that you are teachable. Mm-hmm. And that is huge in residency or just any job when you start out. Like they want to be able to teach you. That's the biggest thing, because they want to make you fit into their environment and teach you the skills you need to, like for procedures or whatever it is you end up doing. So, but if you're like top of your class, it's like, okay, well,
how do you show yourself?
You can do med school great, but like, are you teachable, or are you going to be like a know-it-all and you're going to clash with them, basically? That makes sense.
How do you balance that? Do you do that in your interactions with your professors, with your peers? How do you set yourself apart if academics can be kind of that flat line that everybody just has?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think if you're going to surgery, like that's totally different. It's a different game. But all other specialties, I mean, your patients are alive next to you, like talking with you, and you need to show that you can do that when you're talking with your interviewers and your professors and everyone like that. So really make sure you have those people skills down, show that you can think on your feet, to get to know people. They're just people just like you, because that's how your patients are going to be, like, and they're going to give you all the, like, they're just going to be so vulnerable with you, and you need to be able to take that in, process it, and make sure that you take care of them and our partner in their health. So
not say inappropriate things.
Yeah, I mean, the clear red flags, like, you know, don't be a crazy doctor. But
another question we had that it kind of is more overarching too, however you want to answer it.
Yeah.
But letters of recommendation
Mm-hmm.
who are they from? How did you decide?
Yeah.
What did you ask for? Do you have to foster those relationships to get them? Did you get any through your master's program? Do you think that helped?
Yes. So, okay, first of all, how many did you have? I'm not sure what the requirements are now. I think it might have changed. If ASU has a health committee or a pre-health committee or health professions committee, that's the best way to go. They don't have it. She's shaking.
Oh, committee. I'm sorry, not like advising, but committee for the school.
Usually it's associated with the advising group.
Yeah, it's like a special committee that'll write your letter, and ASU does not have one.
Really? ASU, come on. So what that is basically is you have a bunch of your letters of recommendation from all different people, and you have a committee of like administrators and professors, and they sit down in a big room. It's embarrassing, I'm sure, for you, but you're not there most of the time. And they combine all your letters together and write a huge letter of recommendation on behalf of the university and the president and that kind of thing. My school had one, which was nice, but the way you do it if you don't have that committee is I think you have to individually either submit online or have the letter writer submit online so you don't see the letter to AMCAS or ACOMAS, which are for med school. I'm sure there's other ones for other professional types of schools too. But they submit that to the application service and you usually never see it. But as far as how many I had, I think at least 5, maybe more than that. It's really important to get a well-rounded group of letters. So you want to get one from a science faculty. So I would always choose a letter from the highest level class you took. So if you took, I don't know, if
biochem or medicinal chem for the biochem program.
If biochem was your highest, try to get a letter from that professor, because those like 400, 500 level classes are going to be they're going to be very similar to what your professional schools are going to be like. So try to get one from them. Sometimes that's hard. Try to get one from something like totally different, like English, or if you have a minor in like Spanish or art or something like that, something that shows that you're not just science. That really helps show that you're well-rounded as a person. And obviously get one from a doctor. I would get at least 2 from a doctor if you can. If you're going DO, you have to have a DO letter. I think for almost all of the schools, I would assume now it's all the schools, you have to have a DO letter. The easiest way to do that is if you're not currently shadowing a DO or MD, reach out to someone in your community, or if you have a friend, family friend that works at a hospital, or find your way, or just literally call up a doctor and ask them if you can shadow them. And I was telling you this the other day that the best way to go about it is to ask the writer if they would be able to write you a good letter. Don't ask them, can you write me a good letter? Or can you write me a letter? Say, are you able to write me a good letter of recommendation? Because anyone can write you a letter, but it doesn't mean it's going to be good, and you're not going to see it. So that's like, you have no idea what they're writing. Some are going to do like a standard letter that they took off a Microsoft Word template, or like they got online. Like,
insert name here.
Yeah, you want someone that knows you, that wants you to get into school, and they are going to like really write you a good letter. And I've had some professors, they're like, okay, but you have to come in and we're going to sit down and we're going to review your transcript and what you've done, and we're going to sit down and read your personal statement, and we're going to get to know you. And so that's kind of cool when they take the time. I've had one doctor I worked with who basically said, okay, write a letter for yourself and I'll sign it. And I said, okay, thanks. I chose a different doctor to go with because they'll see right through that. Like admissions groups, they know, they can see who is a real letter writer and who is, you know, if you're just like, oh my God, you're the best person ever. And like everyone needs to accept you. Like no one's gonna, like, that's not real. So yeah, definitely do that. Let's see.
How do you go about asking that first conversation?
I would say if you are going into a semester where you're like, I'm taking, you know, like OChem or you guys biochem,
OChem,
right?
biochem.
You're, you know, any of those classes where you're like, I'm going to really try to get a letter out of this person. Make yourself known. Go to office hours. Although you guys are online, so like.
No, they have them.
Oh, they do?
Yep,
oh,
they're
cool.
live, and a lot of them are with the professors.
Cool. Okay.
Like this, they do them on
Do
Zoom.
that, even if it's just like, even if ask a question like you already know the answer to, like whatever, you know. Get to know them, have them be able to recognize you. That's really big because they have tons of students and, you know, you want to stand out. And I don't know, I've heard some people say like, tell them your goals. Like, hey, my goal is to go to med school. I would love to, by the end of the semester, get a letter of recommendation from you. I'm going to work hard this semester to prove it to you, prove why I want to be a good doctor or how I'm going to be a good doctor and I can get through med school, and kind of like tell them, be like, hey, like watch out for me over the semester. Like I'm going to impress you. And then they have an expectation too of you, and they kind of can look for things to write about you throughout the semester. So I've heard that work sometimes. I would say just get to know your professors. It's good to also have, I think, a letter from someone who is not in med school, or I mean, not in your school setting. So someone maybe in the community that can write you a letter, or someone you've maybe like had, like you've worked with. Like I had my boss for the company I worked with, he wrote me a letter, but it was more of a business side of things. It wasn't like you're really good at math or science. Like it was, you can handle tough professional issues, you can handle people, you can manage things. Like
that's important though.
Yeah, you're good at time management, you can schedule stuff. So if you have any other job experience like that, that would be good. I would say though, for sure, if your letter is over a year old, try to ask the writer if you could get a renewed letter, because a lot of times you'll have these classes, then you won't apply for school for another year or two, and that date stamp on there, that's important. Some schools, I know my school made you get a new letter every like 2 years or something if you were there that long.
So if you have people who are just starting OChem and know they won't be applying for 2 cycles, is that about the right timeline? Somebody nod.
Maybe, yeah. You gotta do OChem 1, OChem 2, biochem.
Biochem 1, biochem 2. And then, but we also can do it in a different order. So some people haven't done physics or calc, so then PChem and bio-PChem are pushed out.
Yeah.
Anyway, so if you're talking a year or 2 from graduation, which then you'd be applying sooner, do you ask when you're in the course? Do you ask to ask later? You know what I mean? Do you say, can I come back to you when I'm applying? Or do you say, can you write it now? Because
you can, I think you can tell them. I would always say get it pretty soon after you finish the course, because they're going to say they'll remember you, but truthfully, like they have a lot of students and they might not, you know. If you keep in touch and maintain that relationship, then yeah, they'll be able to write you one maybe a year down the road. But if you can get the letter as soon as you're able to, it's fresh then in their head. And like I said, you can always go back to them and say, is there any way that you can update this letter with a more, a newer date for my application? That would, things like that. And that's not that important, truthfully. It's more of what the content is in that letter. That's going to be the biggest thing. What else?
Betty, got any more questions or want to unmute and just talk? About an hour and a half in, so probably want to wrap up pretty soon.
Did they all take your biochem with you?
No.
Oh.
So Sam and Lauren were in summer labs with me, and David Jacobson.
Nice.
Nikki is next year, I believe.
All right, fun.
Michelle, I'm not sure, and Baja. We're all kind of different pacings, but then there were also people who have already taken biochem labs because they took biochem.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Cool. It's fun. They'll come right back. Like first week of med school, you're like, oh, hexagons again. But yeah, it's fun. And then you zoom through, like 1 week of med school is like one whole semester of biochem. You're like, oh, what?
Yeah, when
So-
you were describing your daily schedule, it sounded like our summer labs on steroids.
Yeah.
And I think after doing 7 days of that, we were all fried. So
It's fun though.
I'm gonna hug you now.
Yeah, you'll get through it.
I've typed a solid 9 pages
Oh God, sorry.
Nikki's taking minutes.
of minutes, but it's really good information. I got to go back and tweak some of it. So you said, and I mean, this is kind of just expanding on what you've kind of already talked about though, but you said, like they don't allow you to work, period. So you like eat via money from loans, or you go to homeless shelters? Like, how does that work?
So what's nice is my med school has a lot of money, first of all. So that's kind of nice.
Part of that is because they don't have doctors, right? That's why they have a lot of funding.
No, my med
trying to
school
keep
is
people?
very, very close to Walmart headquarters. So there's a lot of money there and yes, they don't have a lot of physicians in the community, and everyone is working very hard to make this school a very big success so that they have more doctors and they overall just get healthier. We also have a lot of money from the Rockefeller family. So that's kind of nice. Anyways, if you go to a school that has a lot of money, it's helpful because they feed you a lot. Like I'm telling you, like every few days there's like tons of food. So that's nice because you do save some money there. But yeah, I mean, you just take out loans and just try to be like really smart about what you're buying. Obviously buy food that is good for you. It's going to help you study. You don't want to just buy crap because that's just not going to help you. You just don't have time to like be sick or feel horrible or have to take a nap because you just had a super carb heavy meal. You just don't have time for that. So yeah, you do have to kind of budget for that kind of thing and know what you need to eat and like what you like and budget for that. And yeah, it sucks, but you have to make your loans accommodate that.
You Instant
live.
Pot meal prep, right?
Yeah, I love to Instant Pot. Everyone like I go to school with is like meal prep. Like anytime you get like meal prep and just like make a ton of stuff because you don't have time, and it's so easy to be like, oh, I'm just gonna go like run over and get a hamburger, like, and some fries, and it's like I don't have time to make food. I'm like, yeah, you do. You have time. Like, and it's actually
Graduate 100 pounds heavier.
yeah. Oh, they all these like memes that are like, this is me first year of med school. This is me fourth year of med school, and you're like huge compared. Yeah. Because it's really stressful. Like it's totally different than you've ever done in your life. It's not like a regular job. I mean, you have to be on your game at all times. A professor will call on you and you have to know the answer. And if you don't, you have to figure out how to not look so stupid in front of 200 people. And also, and there's doctors from the community who are going to be your attending one day, and you just have to make it work. And so, yeah. I don't know where I was going with that.
That's all right. You're all right.
Yeah, you have to budget for that kind of thing.
Money. It was money.
Truthfully, as far as physicians go, you're going to make decent money. I mean, you're going to be fine. The amount of money that you're going to take out in your loans, you're going to make back pretty quick, especially if you do it financially correct as far as paying back, if you're just very financially responsible.
Or utilize these programs
which is why they say when you're a resident, even though you now have an income, live like you're a med student, because you got to pay off your loans. And there's all kinds of things. I know there's a book, I haven't read it yet, but I'm going to be reading it. It's called White Coat Investor, and that helps you figure out how to manage your money as a new resident or even a med student, or now if you're an attending physician. It kind of tells you how to budget for all of that. And then also, I think, in med school, they'll teach you, and in every professional school, they usually will cover those kind of aspects as you get closer to graduation. Like, how do you negotiate for more money? How do you,
sell yourself?
Yeah, or maybe you choose a specific location of your residency because it's a lower cost of living so that you can pay off your loans faster. Things like that. I mean, and that's all like more of a business aspect of it, which you can do a whole nother thing.
Yeah, we'll have that.
So yeah, it kind of sucks, the loans, but you get over it fast.
Numb to it?
Yeah, you just numb to it.
It's tomorrow's problem.
Yeah. What else? What do you guys got? How's biochem? You guys love it?
I don't know. I don't think anybody here has actually taken biochem.
Oh, just kidding.
Yeah.
OChem.
Talk to me next
Fabulous.
spring. We did OChem.
OChem.
Guys,
Also-
unmute. It's cool.
Also,
Stop.
OChem is like, it sucks because they like make it such a big thing. You don't do any OChem in med school, like none. Maybe in pharmacy school. I'm pretty sure pharmacy school you gotta do some OChem. But yeah, she's like, it's like a weeder class is what they call it. At least, like, you know, if you can get through it, then you're good. But
I think we're kind of fortunate. Our professors teach from a different perspective, is my understanding. Obviously, my exposure has been from them, but they teach from the perspective of learning theory. And so
That's
the
nice.
homework is non-punitive, and it's there for your own use, and your scores are based on your a little bit of homework, but not really. And it's based on learning through doing.
That's nice.
There's more psychology than that, but just
Yeah.
I think as a whole, a lot of us kind of felt that we didn't have the traditional OChem experience
Not
probably
as
better.
far as the fear-mongering that's involved.
Where like you start your class with like 300 people and all of a sudden it's like 50, like 2 weeks in, you're like, oh.
I mean, I think we lost about, 10% of the class?
I think it was less than that because like OChem 1 was 151 students and OChem 2 was 150. So it's including all the people that didn't have to take OChem 2. That's like,
We picked up people that. Sorry, I talked over you. That was rude.
oh, no, that's fine. That was a big portion of people that just didn't need to take the second semester. So they really keep most of their students, especially through the first semester.
Wow, that's probably being taught well.
Yeah.
You guys are lucky.
Yeah.
The rate my professor reviews speak to how those two professors are, Dr. Gould and Dr. Austin, that they're very good professors, for lack of elaboration.
Is the one who co-founded this program.
Oh,
So
okay.
he's passionate about online learning.
See, if your
and doing it well.
professors care about you, you're going to succeed. Like, that's how you have to choose a school. Like, you're all the other stuff, you're going to learn it no matter what. Like, you can pick up a textbook and learn it. But if someone's, like, there holding your hand, like, making sure that you're okay, like,
Hey, do DOs specialize like how MDs do? So like, oh, I'm a neurologist.
yeah.
Is
So,
that
yeah, DOs and MDs, you go through the same amount of schooling. It's 4 years, and you can both prescribe and do surgery, and everything is the same. You can still you can subspecialize in like the craziest, tiniest little field of medicine. It's all the same. The only really big difference is your philosophy of how the body works and how to treat it. And
like holistic versus compartmentalized?
yeah, we always try if we can. Sometimes it's hard depending on where you're working and the policies there, on like how much time you get to spend with the patients and, you know, what's approved and what's not approved to do. But we always try to, if we can, use our hands and adjust certain aspects of your body in order to get your body working efficiently. One of the like famous DO kind of like philosophy quotes is that any doctor can find disease, but a true DO can find health. And it's true because like a disease is dis-ease, like your body, something is wrong, your body's not easily working, right? So as a DO, you try to manipulate things in the body to get it back into ease. And a lot of the things that you find, a lot of the pathology or dysfunction that you'll find as a DO, the way we're trained is I see something wrong with you that maybe an MD won't, but that is telling me that a certain disease is going to be like, it's a it's a precursor to a certain disease or a certain condition. So we're just trained with a little bit different philosophy. For instance, like even a surgeon who's a DO can use osteopathic manipulation. We have a bunch of surgeons that work at my school, and they are able to manipulate a certain part of your neck, which helps with post-op nausea without having to prescribe all these medications for the patient, which, you know, maybe they're allergic or it might be contraindicated based on what I've already given them. So there's certain techniques that you can do, certain things for every specialty that you can bring the manipulation in. It's not as commonly used as, you know, say like if you were go to your MD or your family doctor. I don't think a lot of DOs do a lot of OMM, but you do think of things differently. Like even the surgeons were telling us that when they're doing surgery, you spend so much time as a DO learning anatomy and structure and function, like 200 more hours than an MD, that you see things differently. Like, you know how when you cut a certain thing, it's going to affect the body and the entire body, not just like that aspect of the wound or whatever. So it's just a little bit different mindset. You approach every situation a little differently because you have that extra knowledge, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because so I just got out of the Marine Corps after 9 years, and there was another female Marine in one of the groups I'm in who she is a DO. She got out after 4 years and like went, and she's already done. She's board certified, yada, yada. And so I had never really known what a DO was. It was all just fancy little acronyms, and they all just give me treatment, and that was all that mattered. But once I talked to her about it, and she kind of like told me it was like more the holistic approach instead of kind of compartmentalization. And I thought that was really interesting and I started to notice that like I prefer care that I get from DOs than I've gotten from MDs. And so I'm still kind of up in the air as to which path I'm going to take. So it's definitely interesting hearing from a DO student. And then I have some friends who are MD students. It's definitely interesting hearing about it comparatively. On the flip side, though, I love research. So I don't know.
You can do tons of I've worked on like a lot of studies. And I mean, you can definitely do research as a DO, also as an MD, obviously. But we have recently seen, some of my professors were actually telling me they're doing some like summer courses for MDs with specific things that we know how to manipulate. So for instance, like I was telling you about the surgeon who can manipulate a certain part of your neck to help with nausea. There's things that MDs are seeing that they want to add into their practice. And it's actually cool. Well, because it works and
it's cool.
Prescription costs are very expensive. There's addiction involved. Like it's becoming much more of a holistic, preventative care type environment in general, like across all the medical boards. So, I mean, those types of things are now sort of being integrated. And I think that's why also now that they're, integrating the residency programs, things like that are going to start becoming more and more similar. But there's only so many things you can teach an MD. Like as a DO, you learn day one certain concepts that are probably not taught in an MD school, which is fine, but like you have just that different knowledge for every single thing. But yeah, you have to figure out what you want to do. You can still be a great physician as an MD, and you can still do research, and it's really what you find you click with best. That makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, my passion lately has been neurology. I started my path towards medicine because I wanted to be a pediatrician because my kid's pediatrician sucked. So I was like, well, I'm just going to go do it better. But I'm a CNA. I got my CNAs so I can get my clinical experience, and like seeing like the residents of these assisted livings with really bad Alzheimer's and dementia, like that's become really interesting to me. And then it's kind of spawned from there. So like, I still want to be able to have that focus and do research in that field. But yeah, I don't know how that kind of fit in with DO versus MD.
Yeah, truthfully, you're going to be a doctor. And, I mean, if you can write a grant proposal and get funding for a study, people don't really care anymore. That's kind of what it's getting to. I think it's now like either a third or fourth of all med students are DOs now, and that's huge because that was not the case, 2 decades ago or even a decade ago. So they're just becoming more and more and more similar in so many ways that, like, I can tell you most like big hospitals, and for instance, like when I was living in California, I had Kaiser, and that's like huge. Like they hire DOs and MDs and they do the same thing, and it doesn't you know, it really doesn't kind of matter. Your patients really don't care unless
they even know.
Patients don't know. Yeah.
because normally your white coat says like doctor whatever, you know, like they have no idea, but they know if they like you, and they know if they feel like you're a partner in their health. And DOs really focus on making sure that you maintain that relationship with your patient, which is really hard to do when you have 12 to 14 minutes in the room with a patient, and you see them like every like 6 months maybe, if they have an ongoing condition, like,
And if they're compliant.
like, there's so many aspects of it. So you have to figure out, like, literally you're going to be a doctor no matter what, but you have to figure out what school is going to help you succeed, and do what you want to do. And if you find an MD school is going to do that, then that's what works. DO, that's what works too.
I should have started with, tell us how DO differs from MD.
Yeah.
It's not really common. Apologize, Pat. Next time I'll do it better.
It's okay. I should have, as a DO student, I should have like.
Yeah.
You're our guinea pig. Really quick for my minutes. One thing, where do you do the MMIs? Where did you say that you did that?
That's at a lot of the med school interviews.
Okay, that's what I thought.
School now does MMIs, and I don't know if any of you have already interviewed at med schools, but like MMIs, they kind of suck. I did one school, my interview group was 80 students, which is insane. And like that's 80 students in one big lecture hall basically, and then they push you through 9 MMIs. So, I mean, you don't ever get to really sit down with just one person to talk to them. You're going from like an ethics case to a random case of like, tell me how you failed in a team sport or something weird, and
they're meant to be disorienting.
It is. It's also supposed to help see how fast you are with things, because when you do your like actual boards to become a doctor, you like you're going to see 12 patients in a row, and what you do is you stand outside that door, there's a clipboard, and it tells you only like 3 or 4 things about the patient. Like your patient is between 20 and 70 years old. I'm like, cool, that gives me like nothing. And your patient has like 3 of their vitals listed, so like you have to do the rest of the vitals. And also your patient is coming in for a follow-up, and you're like, this gives me nothing. So you have to be able to then walk in the room and know like what you need to ask, what spots you need to fill in, and that kind of is similar with the MMI situation. They're trying to get you to think really fast on your feet in a professional setting, wearing like a full suit, like sweating, and also trying to not like show that you're exhausted because this is your 9th interview, in the day. So
find a comfortable suit.
Seriously, yes. Something that you feel comfortable in, because like I've been to interviews and I've seen people wear like, I saw one girl wear like a dress and a white blazer, and I'm like, cool, rock it. Like if that's you, like rock it. You're gonna stand out. Like wear what fits you, what you like, what's comfortable for you. That's big. It also makes you stand out. So what else?
I love the story you told this week about the rib.
Oh, I had worked with a physician that told me something that like is kind of shows you the difference of a DO MD. He had seen a resident. He had seen. I prefer DO as my primary care. What's up?
That's fine.
Nice. Sorry, I'm biased, but
Enlightened.
Yeah. He had seen. Actually, I don't remember if it was him or if someone he worked with. But anyways, long story short, patient came in, shortness of breath. They couldn't figure out what was wrong. They ran all the tests, ran all the x-rays, CTs, everything. Couldn't figure out what was wrong. Patient wasn't previously asthmatic, and basically they were like stumped.
So he was tripoding, right?
Tripoding, which means you have your hand kind of on a table trying to get better air going through you. And one of the residents, it was like a mixed residency, which they have now already before this merger. One of the residents was a DO and said, can I try, like we've tried everything else, can I try manipulating or examining the patient and seeing if I could figure out where the dysfunction is, and can I manipulate them? And they ended up finding that one of the vertebrae were out of place, and the rib, because it was out of place, the rib was also out of place. and the rib was puncturing part of the lung, which was causing the patient to not be able to expand their lungs as fully and then thus have shortness of breath. So they did manipulations that like I could do right now, like I know it from first year med school, and the patient was able to breathe again. Like, so things like that, like you just think a little bit differently. And so then a DO would then think of that case and say, okay, why was their rib out of place? Like what in their daily life are they doing that's causing them to have this rib constantly go out of place, or their spine, or have sciatic pain, or like what can we change in your lifestyle to help you not have this again?
Go back to the source.
And keep your body in ease, right? So
yeah. Well, and that's one thing that about DOs that really interested me is, so I was medically separated because I have herniated discs, my hips are messed up, my knees are messed up, a bunch of other stuff. But it all started with my hips. My hips were bad. But I mean, I was seeing, well, Navy doctors aren't always the greatest either. But I mean, the people I was seeing were like, you know, only focused on my hips. Hips are bad, hips are bad, hips are bad, trying to fix my hips. Well, while trying to fix my hips, my back, like I blew a disc, and then another, and then another. And then the last thing to go was my knees. Most recently, I have like no cartilage in my right knee. I have minimal cartilage in my left knee. And so to me, when I did finally see a DO for my knees, he was like, oh, well, they, you know, this is connected to this, and this caused this, and that caused that. So if they had just done this, I'm like,
yeah.
well, you're like 7.5 years too late at this point, but thanks.
Yeah, remember how I was saying, like, you know, structure, function, you learn that in bio, you know, and you're like, whatever cells. But like, no,
Yeah.
really, like if part of your spine is out of place, like everything's out of place. Like, hello, like it's common sense, right? If you think about it, like it's a puzzle, and if something's not fitting, then things are gonna happen. So yeah, that's interesting how you were saying that, like it all links together because it really is integrated.
Yeah, one of my legs is like slightly longer than the other, and so like that alone just caused this domino effect. And so it's kind of important to look big picture.
Big picture.
Yeah.
To look.
Yeah. To look at everything, you know, look at the whole thing. But
we had an entire lecture, and I like went into the lecture and I was like, oh, this is gonna be just so boring. Like this is common sense. Like one whole lecture on posture. I'm like, duh, like sit up straight, whatever. No, it's like the difference, like I can now look at someone, and this was like our like assignment for fun. They were like, go hang out at Walmart for an hour, like as you're shopping, and just watch people walk, watch people how they stand, and you're gonna see the dysfunction already. Like you're gonna see, yeah, one leg is like longer than the other, or their hips are completely like one side's like this, one side's like this. You'll see like some old ladies bending over, you know, like hunchback, and they teach you that, you know, like if you have a certain posture, your head becomes 80 pounds. Now you have to carry 80 pounds. Like you don't really have 80 pounds on your head, but the way you're standing is now affecting every other part of your body. Now your organs are having to hold that weight. Now, I mean, your feet, good luck, you know, like, so it's very interesting. Like I actually ended up liking that lecture a lot, but I was like, this is like wasting my hour, you know, but it's not, it's very integrated, and yeah, you look at the whole picture. So it could be that like you change the way that you have your desk set up when you study. You do standing desk. They say standing or sitting is the new smoking. Watch out. Yeah, I don't know. It's just really interesting. That's part of the reason I like DO too. It really is the whole body, and it sounds very cliche, but
why is it a cliche?
Because it's like everyone's like, oh, I'm gonna be like I want to go into medicine because I want to help people and treat the whole person. And I mean, you do don't ever say you want to help people on your interviews or in your personal statement, which sounds very like what? Like, because you do want to help people, but that is like the line that everyone says, and it doesn't give you any insight into like what you actually want to accomplish as a physician.
To be more specific.
Be more specifically like, I want to help the physician shortage. I want to go in there to rural environments, underserved communities, and treat these patients. Like, I want to go into the military and become a better doctor than I've had in the military. Like, or not.
well, that's not much of a challenge, so they'd be pretty set for success there.
Yeah, but like figure out what it is you personally want, like what your personal goal is as a physician, and address that. Yeah, but don't say I want to help people. how? Because I guarantee you in your interview, they're going to be like, how do you want to help people? Like, everyone wants to help people. So that's a hard one to answer, though, like in your personal statement. So got to do some thinking.
We're coming up on 2 hours.
Oh, sorry.
No, you don't have to apologize.
That's a lot.
I mean, they can drop out at any time.
That's
It's
true.
It's your time, and you've been talking
No, I'm
for
just
a very
chilling.
long
I like
time.
talking about all this stuff.
I'm sure we could continue that.
Nerdy like you
I'm
guys.
checking in.
Yeah, I'll end all my questions with thank you for doing this because it's been really insightful. Like I said, I was kind of on the fence. Maybe now I'm leaning more one way than another. I have a little time to decide, but it was really helpful.
This coming cycle or?
No, I'm still a few cycles out. So I have about 1.5 years left. So the way I've done it is I'm going to take a semester to study for my MCATs because that is one thing that you mentioned that I was like kind of prepared for. But yeah, I'm taking a whole semester like just to do MCAT crap this semester, the spring 2021 semester, and then I'll take my biochem labs that summer and I'll be graduated. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, thank you so much for coming and talking to us, listening to all our crazy questions.
Yeah, sorry if it was all like heavy med school stuff. I don't know that much about other professional schools. So
No, that's what this
I know
was.
a little bit about pharmacy and
This was about you.
a little bit about PA. So yeah.
We have to find people. We're mining our resources, and you are my resource.
Yeah. I mean, if you can find someone who is like, you can have be your mentor. So if it's a physician that you currently like or that you've shadowed and things are like way different now. Like I've shadowed some really old doctors who like have no concept of like what the MCAT's like these days and that it's 8 hours on a computer. Like, so, I mean, some might not be able to help you as much, but if you can get like a mentor, that's also a really good letter of recommendation, but also they can give you tips like, you know, stuff that I've said and that kind of thing. So hopefully it'll help you. Anything else?
I mean, we could just keep talking, but
They probably are like, I want to go.
they can go.
I have it's almost 11 o'clock here and I'm doing a spa float tomorrow morning. So
Like the sensory deprivation tanks where Sheldon has like an epiphany. Yeah.
She said spa and I was like, oh.
yeah, my husband got me it for Valentine's Day / our wedding gift, and that was a long time ago. So I'm gonna use it finally. So I have to get to bed here shortly. So
Fair enough. We can wrap it up.
I would like to motion to officially adjourn the meeting.
I'd like to say thank you first, Nikki.
I said thank you already.
You said thank you. I didn't say thank you.
Fine.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
If you guys have any questions, I can give Ellie my email and you guys
I
can.
have your email.
Well, okay.
You're my cousin.
My school email.
Okay. To pass out.
Yeah, and
Oh.
I can answer like whatever I can. I can't guarantee it's gonna be like in a timely manner, but you know.
Well, you guys can
If you have any
also
questions.
just feel free to drop it in the event stuff too, especially while I'm here because I can get
Yeah.
fast responses.
Or also, if you're thinking about applying to ARCOM, let me know because it always helps to have someone, you know, who's already in the program and they can always be like, hey, FYI, there's going to be a really awesome student coming in. You should pay attention to them in the interview.
with the dean that stands at the door to shake your hand.
Or like my school is really awesome. We get to have lunch with our president like every few months. And that's really cool. You just talk like one-on-one, be like, hey, I need this, this, and this in my course and I'm not getting it or whatever. But like, you know, I can also be like, hey, what's up? Like I have a student here who is good.
Our program's in our second year.
Yeah.
And this summer when they went, they had students meet with the dean. And
Oh,
the
cool. That's awesome.
president of the school, right? Michael Crow was there, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Same idea. New program. They're invested. They want to hear from students. They want to know about the
Yeah.
experience, and it makes a difference.
It's pretty awesome, actually. It's kind of a cool spot to be in. Use it, leverage.
Particularly if the program is also good.
Yes, that too. Sounds like it is. And it's from a good school, so you guys will be fine. So yeah. But if you have any other questions or anything, like feel free to email. See what I can do.
Thank you,
Answering
everyone,
them.
for coming. And for everybody who is watching this after, also feel free to drop in questions. Unless this like stays up forever and ever, and then it's like months later, in which case, you know.
Oh, and props to all of you because like, this stuff's hard. Like, this journey's hard. Like, going into all these health professions. It sucks when all your friends are doing fun things and you're studying biochem, like, or OChem or physics or something. So, like, keep going one day at a time.
And being online, we're isolated even from each other.
Yeah, that's true.
Just part of what this club has given us. Just
you like stay in connection with each other because that's awesome to have that support. Because life's hard.
All right, I'll take your motion now, Nikki. I'll accept it.
Okay. Should I remotion? A motion to adjourn the meeting?
Can I second?
I don't think you remember, but
I'll
go
second
for it.
that since they're not paying attention.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Second, a third.
And we out.